All right, everybody, let's get started. Anybody who comes in after this will just have to miss my stellar introduction. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Underwood. I'm serving as president of AFP-WNC, and welcome to the first monthly program of 2022. Here we go. Off to a strong start with this one. I'm very glad that you're here. We have only begun to round up sponsors for 2022 for the chapter. So I don't have 2022 sponsors to thank, but I do want to acknowledge our 2021 sponsors because they do so much for us and for the chapter. They included UNC Asheville, Western Carolina University, the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina, AB Tech, the Community Foundation of Henderson County, and First Citizens Bank. So thanks to them for everything they do for the chapter, and look forward to welcoming our round of 2022 sponsors here soon. I want to ask a question or pose a question to the group before I go through the rest of the announcements that Jim is going to cover. He wants you to think about this for a little bit, and he's going to talk about it early in his talk. So here is the question, and I'll drop it in the chat too. What's the difference between a strategy and a tactic? All right. I know I sometimes use those interchangeably. So keep that in mind as I'm talking through the rest of this. Let it kind of roll around in your head. Jim's going to talk to us about it. Couple of announcements. One regarding programming and of AFP events for the 2022 looking forward. Based on what we know now with the state of the pandemic and all the other factors affecting us, the board's plan is this. We will remain virtual for monthly programs through March. So look for more information about those coming forward. We'll continue to meet by Zoom. In April, we are planning a triumphant return to in-person meetings. However, that is with a change in format and time. We're going to transition away from the traditional hotel-based luncheon professional development and go to explore some alternate spaces and alternate formats. So I'm really excited about that for what that offers for chapter members in terms of diversity of experiences and hopefully more accessibility and safety. So thanks very much to the board and to Jessica, our chapter administrator, for helping us come up with that new vision that we're really excited to move forward with. So that means we are also planning for Philanthropy Institute in July and for National Pandemic, but I'm excited about that for the chapter. So speaking of programming, next month on February 16th, I'm really excited to welcome Kevin Williamson, who's Associate Vice Chancellor for Advancement at North Carolina A&T. A&T just had a great fundraising year, and he's going to be sharing his perspective and experience helping to lead that work. And he's also been a fundraising leader with, I believe, the Boy Scouts and several other universities. So really, really dynamic speaker and a lot of great insight. So please, when you see the registration for that open up, please go ahead and register. All right. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Jim Brewer. Many of you know Jim and love Jim, and you know you're excited for his topic today. He's speaking to us on mobilizing your agency with a tactical calendar. Jim's got over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. He's served in fundraising leadership roles at Winston-Salem State, UNC Asheville, and Pardee Health. And he's currently the director of altruism at ABCCM. And as far as Jim or I know, certainly, he is the first person with that title in Western North Carolina. So that's pretty exciting. So with that, I will hand it over to Jim Brewer for this month's program.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that very warm and nice introduction. I don't know if people love me, but I think they certainly know me. But, I want to welcome everybody. As Ben said, this is the kickoff conversation, and I would like it to be a conversation for our chapter, and hopefully it will be a good one. Since it is January, it's always good to sort of have a roadmap or a blueprint of what you want to accomplish in a year. So what we've done at ABCCM is create such a roadmap based upon our strategic plan, and it helps us marshal everything that we need to do to be able to be successful. So I'm going to go into it first. I'm going to share a screen, You know, we got a huge slide deck, about 148 slides. So I think it'll be fine. You know, hope everybody stays. Hope nobody has anything this afternoon. So let's go from this and then we can go. So mobilizing your agent with a tactical calendar. That was a really nice title. I think Ben came up with that one. So I really appreciate that. So, you know, so what is a tactical calendar? You see what it is. This is an important way because it's the important keywords here are visual organizer in a timely order. Okay, so it's visual, so you can see it at a glance instead of looking at numbers and dates. They're color coded and in a timely order, so you know what comes first, what comes second, what comes third. You can see it at a glance. Okay, and it aligns departments, resources, and personnel. Okay, now if you are in a small shop, you know, just one or two people, you know, you might be able to just shout across the room. But if you have multiple locations or multiple departments, this is absolutely critical to keep everybody on track and responsible for everything. So that's why I call it a tactical calendar, you know. Wow, I didn't know it would do that. So Ben asked strategy, a tactic. What is the difference between a strategy and a tactic? And there was a couple of answers. So somebody said actionable items. And this is I have to admit, this is a pet peeve of mine, drilled into me from the Marine Corps. A strategy and a tactic. They are not the same, but they are closely aligned. And so when I hear somebody, one of our strategic directives or one of our strategic plans is like, no, there's only one strategic plan. There's lots of tactics. So I just wanted to clarify what they are and what we mean when we're talking about a tactical calendar. You see what a strategy is, you know, and some of the differences. Okay, I hate people who just sort of read it, but I wanted to put that out. So when you said, when they typed in actionable items, you know, that is, but keep in mind for a tactic, an actionable item has to be a short term, you know, very short term, no more than 3 months. Okay. Whereas a strategy has a 1 to 3 year time. That's one of the major differences. It's a tactic is something that can be planned, executed, and measured within a very short time period. Okay, that a tactic in and of itself, taken out of context, may not be much. It may just be a mailing. It may be, you know, an event, you know, but it does have to align with the strategy. Okay. Some of the differences, overall indicators. For example, if, say you wanted to say, our organization plans to end homelessness in Western North Carolina. Okay, that's the vision. Okay, overall indicator would be something like, our strategy is to reduce the point in time survey in January by 20% over the next 3 years. Okay, there's a 3-year period and it's an overall indicator. A tactic would be, we're going to open up affordable housing, or we're going to open up a shelter for the homeless people who can come in, and we can help them get a house or suitable housing. Okay. Strategy relates to the leadership. That's important to note. You know, the board and the executive officer or the executive team is responsible for strategy. Tactics drill down to the departments and even further than that if necessary. Okay. A strategy is regular reviews. And by that, I mean 6 months at a minimum. You can't review a strategy every month because strategy is a long term. So you have to look at key indicators, and that takes the time to aggregate the data. Okay. You can change a strategy, but it's like, as I compare it, it's like changing an aircraft carrier. It takes 11 miles to turn an aircraft carrier. Very slow, very deliberate. Same with a strategy. Whereas a tactic, if something's not working, you can stop or change it very quickly, you know, based upon immediate feedback. For example, if you were doing a mailing, you know, you should get a response within 30 days of a mailing. So you have quick feedback about the how effective that mailing was. Am I going too fast? I'm kind of nervous, so I tend to talk a little too fast, you know. But again, so I wanted to point out the differences between strategy and tactics. So they always have to align. That is, strategy dictates the tactics and the tactics support the strategy. Okay, that's important to keep in mind. If a tactic does not align with a strategy, you shouldn't be doing it. Even if you've been doing it for 20 years, if your strategy is said to end homelessness, and you have a tactic that is raising money for puppies, you know, get rid of that tactic. You know, and a strategic plan will give you that basis for making that decision. Okay, that is something key to do. So you have to review, make sure your tactics align with your strategy. And of course, as I said, yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And maybe you're about to address this. If you were, my apologies. The alignment piece makes good sense to me. I'm curious, when you say they won't cover everything, and yet we use this plan to kind of tell us what to do and what to stop doing. I always struggle in creating a tactical calendar to figure out where that line is between what makes it onto the calendar and what doesn't. And because if you try to put everything on it, all you'll do is work on your calendar. You'll never get anything else done. How do you think about that?
Well, that is a struggle. That is a long-term discussion that really takes place at the strategic level, that you decide what the overall indicators are. And then the tactics will align with that. When I say it won't cover everything, I'm talking about if there's an unexpected opportunity that comes up, then you may have to look at your strategic and see how that aligns with your overall plan. And then if that does, you can develop the tactics. For example, we own a piece of property in Asheville that was formerly the residence for women and children. When we opened up our new transformation village, we moved the ladies and the women and the children to the new place, and we planned to sell that property. But just a couple of months ago, we were contacted by someone who wants to be involved with our ministry. They bought the property, but we're still running it. So we've had to realign, not so much the strategy, because it still falls under our deal for providing shelter, and some of it falls within our strategic plan, but our tactics had to expand to include that, you know, how we want to do that. Okay. So when I mean tactics won't cover everything, it simply means you can't plan for every contingency. Okay. But it does mean, like I said, if you're planning to end homelessness, you shouldn't be raising money for puppies or trees, even though that's something you've been doing for a long time and you think it's a lot of fun, you know. So that's the difference, I think. And being able to say, well, this is really nice, but you know, it's not effective and doesn't fall under our strategic plan, you know, then somebody saying, well, we've been doing this for years. Say, well, we've excluded it from our strategic plan, so we exclude this particular tactic, whether it's an event or a mailing or whatever it might be. So they always have to align. A tactic has to support that strategic plan. You know, and we'll talk more about that when we look at ABCCM. So I think when I say it won't cover everything, it gives you a roadmap, but it doesn't mean it's inflexible or it's carved in stone. Okay, because there will always be an opportunity, you know. But it also means if an opportunity arises that doesn't fall within the strategic plan, you shouldn't just jump on it because it's an opportunity. Okay, so
Jim, I'd like to ask an overall question, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
The thing I'm wondering is, it sounds like everything you're saying that what we're talking about here is a plan or a rundown of what you would show the board. And my question is there ever any difference between the plan that you show the board and the plan that you work with your internal team?
That's a good question. I would not necessarily show a tactical calendar to the board. We can do strategic but the tactical is at the operational level, and a board is only concerned with the leadership level. You know, I won't tell the board, well, we're going to do a mailing and we need to have 5,000 pieces of letterhead stationery, and we need to get, you know, we had to have these envelopes and everything. So I wouldn't tell them that.
Good point. You know, although some of your board members don't really understand the difference.
I think that applies to a lot of boards, you know, and I admire their enthusiasm, and, you know, we want to be involved, but, you know, a tactical plan is operational. You know, we can tell them the results, but not how we got there, you know. So that is a difference. You know, I would not share unless they ask, of course, and then I would run it up to the ED and let the ED talk about that, let them share that. But, you know, you want to make sure there's those lines drawn. So let me tell you a little bit about ABCCM and why we felt we needed to have a tactical calendar. ABCCM, also known as Asheville Buncombe Community Christian Ministry, was founded in 1969. This is our 53rd year in operation. Okay, we started out as a very small operation on Cox Avenue in basically a 2-room building. Today, we have 6 ministries all across the county and beyond. We have 4 crisis locations, north, south, east, and west. We have the only no charge free medical clinic in the county. We have a Veterans Restoration Quarters on Turner Road. We have Veteran Services of the Carolinas that has a call center and has a presence in 74 counties throughout North Carolina. We have Transformation Village, which we just opened up. That's our transitional housing for women and children with plans to add permanent supportive housing. And we have Costello House, which was repurposed from the old transitional housing for women and children into a winter shelter, and it may become a men's recovery center or may become a permanent year-round shelter for the homeless. Okay, so we have a lot of ministries, a lot of different locations. We have over 150 employees and right now, just over 3,000 volunteers. Okay, so a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. Give you some idea, in 2021, we've helped over 20,000 households. Okay, and over half of them have been a one-time deal. That is, they've come to us for help and we've helped them. Like I say, we fill in the gaps. We help people in crisis, for example, with food, with clothing, with evictions. We've helped almost 500 households from being evicted. Last year, we helped almost 1,000 households with their utilities in danger of being cut off. And we provided housing for almost 800 people throughout the year, almost 1,000 people again.
Some of those great volunteers, Jim, helped us at an offsite vaccine clinic for folks that couldn't get a vaccine a normal way, but they wanted a vaccine, they just didn't have access.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Sharon. Yeah. I recall that now. They were talking about that. You know, we do deal with, we deal with homeless. We deal with, I also forgot, we also have the jail ministry, or what we call the re-entry ministry now, as we help detainees both within the Buncombe County Detention Center and as they begin to transition or re-enter society. That's a ministry we're working on this year. We've had the jail ministry for several years, but we're expanding what that might mean. But again, that ties in with our strategic plan. And honestly, the strategic plan, the origin of that is Matthew 25, 35 through 40. So if you want to look that up, that's our driving, our mission statement, you might say. So, but anyway, you can see with that many locations, with that many people we're helping, having a calendar allows us to keep everything on track. Okay. So, any questions about ABCCM or so what I'm going to do, I am going to hold on just a second. I'm going to exit this. And then I'm going to do a new share, if you'll bear with me. There we go. And I'm going to do a new share. This is our overall calendar. Okay. Can anyone see this calendar? Okay. So here we've organized. I'm just going to do the first quarter because and beyond that, but we've filled it out for almost the entire year, but that would be way too much information, not information, but way too busy for everything. But I just wanted to show you the first quarter, the themes, the appeals or actions, you might say, and then which one of our ministries is most directly affected. Because that way we let the people who are on that at that ministry know what's coming down the pike, and so they can be expecting it. Okay. So we have these themes: warm for others, safe and warm. We'll be talking about safe and warm more in detail. Servant leader, volunteer, second chances, open door for others. February, love your neighbor, volunteer drive. We always want volunteers, but according to our records, people make resolutions to be more involved. So they really want looking for volunteer opportunities. So this January and February is a good time to do that. And we also offer training to all our volunteers. And then in March, caring for the sick and food drive. Okay. So this is how we sort of broke it down. Okay. You see the 4 departments that I work with most closely: marketing, altruism, that's me, volunteerism, and church relations, church RE. We have over 300 churches who are involved with us in some way, either financially and or sending volunteers. Okay, so, you know, once again, if you're working with 300 churches, you want to make sure everything's coordinated. So we want to make sure that everything we do it's coordinated and aligned with the strategic plan and with each other's departments, you know. So we look at January. In fact, we kicked it off yesterday, public phase, the safe and warm. And we'll be talking more about that in a minute. But you see marketing, what it's responsible for, altruism, volunteerism, and church relations, as well as the leadership. Okay. Then we have February and March. So, and the rest of the calendar looks very similar. Okay. And it's color coded because, again, remember, a tactical calendar is a visual calendar, a visual organizer. You want to be able to see it and say, okay, now, is it marketing or is it altruism? You can see by the color. Okay. And so if we look at safe and warm is our drive during this time of year to collect blankets, winter clothing, and funding to help people with heating needs. You know, we've been doing it, I think this is our 5th year that we've organized everything under a safe and warm umbrella. We've been doing it for years, but it's always been sort of piecemeal. Now we can do it all together. So let's close that out. But you can see what you see, this actually started in November, you know, just to begin everything going. And again, this takes in what we said with a tactic, a 1 to 3 month period for it to go. So we have November. You see it organized by weeks and by departments, by colors. You can see what's happening, see who's responsible. Secure materials, who is that? Oh, that's green, that's altruism. Okay, arranged materials, that is, we could get boxes and we get donation of large boxes and other items that we can use as collection boxes. And volunteers come and then they decorate them and prepare them for everything. We've been storing them, okay, or replacing, refreshing many of them. But that's volunteers, okay? You see marketing, you see all this, you can see it just by glancing at it, And again, you have to choose the colors you want, but simply by looking at the colors, you can tell who is responsible for what, but also what needs to happen before something else happens. So if you look at press release in December, marketing drafts the press release. Then altruism finalizes it and approves it. And that can take up to 2 weeks, depending on who has to review it. Then at the end of December, beginning of January, sometimes there's bleed. We release it. We contact the media outlets and let them know through the press release what's happening. Okay, and again, that's through marketing. Okay. So by me looking at this, I can tell where we are and what's happening. And as you can see, we have, the third week of January was the public launch, and everything went on time and away we went. And next week, you can see what we have. We have the spotlight interview. We have other things going on. So it's been a all hands on deck, but this year has gone very, very well using this kind of visual organizer to know what needs to be done and when it needs to be done so somebody else can do their job. Last year at this time, I have to admit, it was something, I was brand new and we weren't sure if we were going to do safe and warm, so it was sort of a scramble. But this year we got over almost 40 locations with churches and businesses who are participating. We have new sponsors, and we had a public launch, and then next week we're all going to be on TV. So, it's been using this has certainly smoothed out all the different moving parts. So that's why I encourage anyone who has either a multi-location or a large staff, or many events or activities throughout the year to use some type of tactical calendar. Okay. And basically that's it. So let's say about 17 minutes, and that's where we are. So any questions, any comments, I'll stop sharing. So there we go. All right. That's it.
Jim, can I ask the fact that they're organized by month, do you have any issues while it's clear, surely some of the tactics start in the first week and others wait till the last of the month. Do you have any way to note where in the month things are supposed to happen?
Well, yes. I didn't want to get into that much detail. Okay. I mean, we have it by dates. We use the Friday of each week as the marking point on even the monthly calendar. So this might be due on the 14th, or this might be due something like that. But we know what it is and how it bleeds into everything else. And if it doesn't happen, we need to let other people know, because they're waiting on what other people have done. And this is available. This is access. The overall theme calendar is access to all the staff so that they know what's coming down the pike. The last one I showed you about safe and warm, that's only the people who are involved. So, it's a different layers. And of course, for the board, it's just the theme calendar and above. But they don't get into the fact that we need to pick up boxes next week to decorate them and distribute them. So, but yes, we do use, when we get down, like I said, it's multi-layers. The next layer down will be definite dates. This has to be done by then. And then that's upon me or marketing or volunteerism to have it done by that date so that the next step can go.
Follow-up question. Do you have any thoughts, but a smaller shop without someone who doesn't have so many locations, as to how your plan would look?
Certainly. I see this as serving many purposes. One, like for a multi-location, large staff, you absolutely need it. For a small staff or just a single location, you need to have that one what happens if you win the lottery tomorrow and you say, I'm out of here? You know, the successor is going to come in and go, what am I supposed to be doing? At least having a calendar will say, oh, at least gives them a starting point. They may scrap it, but at least gives them a starting point. So I think it's critical, no matter what the size is, to at least have it ready, so that you know what's coming down the pike, and it's not all in your head or on some kind of, you know, little bitty spreadsheet. And it has to be visual. And when I mean that, I mean it has to be posted someplace. It's not just always in Google Drive, but it has to be out and posted on your blackboard, your whiteboard, your door, someplace that people can look and see where things are. Okay, that's the overall one. And then of course the like, for example, the safe and warm, the absolute tactic calendar, that has to be visual for everybody involved with that particular tactic. You know, if it doesn't involve somebody else, it doesn't have to be. But they do have to be printed out and enlarged someplace that people can see. You know, not just on Google Maps or Google Drive or whatever, but someplace that is very prominent. But yeah, I think every office needs something like this so that people can look and see at a glance, you know, what's coming down the pike and what needs to be done.
I'll ask one more question, and I promise I'll stop. The matter of goals. I would presume that all of your senior managers at least have goals that they have to achieve, and I presume those goals are listed elsewhere rather than put it on the chart.
Yes, goals are related more to an overall strategy. Tactics have objectives. Those objectives should feed into the goal. So for example, if you want to say we're going to end homelessness, and the strategy would be to, you know, focus on the point in time survey, you know, that happens every January, you know, and your goal could be, I want to reduce that by 20%. So there's a goal that is driven by the strategy and by the overall vision. Then the objective would be, you know, we're going to open up a shelter, but it's going to be more than a shelter. It's going to be a transitional housing. We're going to remove as many barriers as we can for people to leave homelessness and come into housing. So we might open up a shelter with the idea that we will house, you know, 20 people and get them stable housing within 3 months. You know, and I just threw that off. But yeah, the goals come from strategy. Objectives come for tactics.
Good answer. Let me push a little bit more on it, because some fundraisers in particular are given what personally I consider unachievable goals that really color how people do their jobs. So you know, the goals you're talking about fit right in with the strategy and what have you. I'm talking about personal goals. Let's say the director of volunteers, you got 3,000, next year it needs to be 4,000, you know, that kind of thing. Do you ever include that kind of goal in your calendar?
That goes into the individual department, you know, and if that ties in with the strategy is, you know, to give everybody who wants to volunteer the opportunity. Then the volunteer administrator then develops a series of tactics to recruit more volunteers. If you set a specific goal, you know, what if he achieves it halfway through? You know, say we want to do 4,000. Well, it's July and we got 4,000, so I can take a vacation. You know, I think, you know, having goals are important. So, but I consider that a key indicator, you know. So I think we're talking about the same thing, but alluding kind of differently. A key indicator, you know, the increase in volunteers. That's part of your strategy, you know. Then the objectives would be, we're going to hold this volunteer drive. We're going to do volunteer training on these dates. We're going to do in February, bring a friend to volunteer week, because we have found that most of our volunteers, became motivated to volunteer through another volunteer. So, we're going to use that. So that would be an objective. We hope to encourage, half of all volunteers to bring a friend, but a goal is also a key indicator in that way,
I think you've explained that very well. I would also say that, as membership chairman for the chapter this year, one of the things I want to really remind everybody is that AFP is a network of people who have seen it all one way or another. Jim's a great example of that. And people who find themselves with a goal that doesn't make sense, or a goal that seems harsh, can talk to people like Jim Brewer to get a different perspective, perhaps, or some tactics as to how to deal with that internally that does not wind up with you being called in and fired for not doing your job. I obviously have some problems with the way I see goals being applied these days, but AFP is a place for support in the unlikely event that would ever happen to anybody.
Thanks, Alex. Now, what's your Venmo so I can send you your $20?
Yeah.
We had a question come in through the chat from Laura Rice. Can you share how you involve the various departments in creating the calendar for the year, a little or a lot?
A lot. Okay, this is driven, this is very much of a two-way street. And this sort of ties in with what Alex was saying earlier. This is not where we're going to want you to increase volunteers by 20%. We want volunteers, to say, well, wait a minute, we got this, and this. We still got COVID. We're still working with that. So they have to be able to provide their data and their pushback, and then working together to design a calendar that is everybody agrees on. Because if somebody just tells you have to do this, that's not motivated, that's manipulated. And you want to be able to say, these are the factors I see that you may not see that will be a factor. So yeah, they have to be involved. It's a team effort. It's kind of like with altruism, for example. We exceeded our fundraising goal for the year. And so of course they've increased it, but we were always involved in what is the increase, where do we want to see this increase overall or in specific areas, and how do we want to achieve that? So it was really a conversation, not simply orders. But yeah, you want everybody to be involved so that they understand the calendar, they understand what other departments are doing and how that will impact your particular tactics, and you want to make sure that everything's coordinated. I got another one. In this particular format, this is the first year that ABCCM has done this particular type of calendar. And it's because as it continues to grow, they see the need for this. And that was something that I and a couple of others really pushed to have something like this. So it is new, but I've worked with similar calendars before at UNC Pardee Foundation. Kim Hinkleman had a great visual organizer calendar that really helped us a lot. So, I've been used to one for many years, and other organizations I've worked with have had similar. So this is the first time we're doing it. So I'll check back with you next year and tell you the results. Any other questions or comments? Does anybody else use a calendar like this? I'd like to know, does anybody else have something like this that they're using that they'd like to share or discuss? I don't see anybody. No, I guess not. Well, I hope this was useful.
Oh, actually, I did have a comment rather than.
Sure.
We tried, I worked for a large organization that had about 150 people in it. And we kept trying to put a calendar together, and boy, it was like herding cats, and I think it probably depends on the nature of the organization. Not not all large organizations with, you know, separate departments like it appears that you have are integrated that seamlessly into all being in the same page, all having the same objectives and vision, even to some cases. So kudos to you to be able to pull that off, because you know, you're obviously very organized, but also you must have had a lot of buy-in from every aspect of the organization.
Well, thank you, Tracy. The key is buy-in. That's the key word. I won't say that we're seamlessly integrated and everything. There's always, you know, push and pull, you know, but I think once we've all agreed on, you know, what we need to be doing, and that, like I said, that took several conversations. This wasn't just sit down and do it all at once. This took several conversations over, you know, several weeks to get this done. Then I think it allowed us to have more fruitful conversations instead of rehashing previous conversations. Or, like I said earlier, somebody says, hey, why don't we do this and this? We can say, it's not on the calendar. It's not something we've approved. So no, we can say no. You know, doesn't mean they can't bring it up. And if it's a wonderful opportunity, we'll examine it. But it does give us the ability to say no and why, you know. So.
Can I just say, Jim, that in my past, I have tried to put just on the advancement side, the development side, some really specific things on these kinds of things that I tried to do. And one thing that I've always asked people to consider is not just if you've got a goal, let's say for $100,000 from corporate entities, that you not just put the number down there that you're trying to raise, but that you also put down the number of contacts it's going to take you in terms of meeting with people. I've always found in dealing with supervisors that if they get the number, you know, for example, somebody's bringing in $1 million gift, the donor's identified, how many contacts is it going to take you to actually bring that in? And it may be as well as many as 5 or 6, as we all know. But putting contacts down in your figuring helps both your supervisor and your board know what it really takes to do your job. So for fundraisers in particular, I ask them to add contacts as well as the dollars raised.
You know, I want to address that. That's a concern of mine. And I'm looking at it from the donor viewpoint. And Kim, you may remember we were at a meeting at the Pardee Foundation when we asked one of the board members and a very generous donor, not only to Pardee, but to several other organizations, how that person felt when they were contacted by one of these organizations, say, hey, let's go out to coffee, or hey, let's catch up. And this person responded, I feel manipulated. I feel like I'm just a box that they're checking. Okay. So whenever you set, you have to have so many contacts per month. We're not taking into account the donor's perspective. We deal with very smart, very savvy donors who are approached by dozens of organizations. Okay. And they know that if, you know, they're just there to check so that they can have a progress report at the end of the month, you know, and supervisors and everybody else need to be aware of this. You know, I mean, we certainly don't like being manipulated or used as just a checkbox. So we want to keep that in mind when we work with our supporters. So that's my 2 cents.
What a great caution. So the way around that, I would think, is something that I've always tried to do, which is early on in the process with a donor prospect to say, I'd like you to coach me on how you'd like me to approach you. I'd like your suggestions as to how how many times we meet, how many, when do I start asking for money? What kind of information do you like to have? And I can't say that I've done it every time, but there have certainly been times when I hope to have seen what Jim's talking about. I remember one donor who did not want to talk. He had 3 minutes. He wanted to talk business and then get me out of the way. So all my Southern niceties about the things on his desk didn't go over well at all.
Yep, you do have to be very receptive and responsive to the donor's interests. And I think having goals set up, arbitrary goals, whether it's you have to have 25 contacts or you have to bring in, remember people say you got to bring in $1 million in a year, so you have to bring in $83,333 a month to make that goal. Well, that's just that's not even realistic. That's fanciful. But anyway, we're off the topic. That's another topic.
But the topic is germane to people in their day-to-day operations. So I think it's a great conversation.
It's the Alex and Jim show. Yes, hi, Kim.
Hi. I actually think it is pertinent to this topic because if you're talking about donor contact, that's not a goal in and of itself. It's a tactic.
Mm-hmm.
In the way Jim just walked through this. So if you think about it in terms of it being a tactic, and tactic sounds harsh and cold when it comes to donor, stewardship, but it is a tactic because it's the way we connect with people. It's the way we talk to people. It's the way you end up soliciting the gift. And so I have always, and I get we're in a world of metrics and we're in a world of moves management and all that stuff, but I've always resisted measuring things in terms of number of contacts. It's much more about building a meaningful relationship with that person to the organization. Mm-hmm. And with some people, that's a weekly communication. Some people it's quarterly. Like you said, Alex, it just depends on the person. And so I've always resisted measuring anything in terms of number of calls because that can be a really hollow. I mean, you can make a ton of calls and say, well, look, I met my monthly goal and not raise a penny because people get what you're doing.
You're exactly right. It does sound kind of harsh when we say, these are tactics, but in this regard, they are in certain ways, but you're absolutely right. You cannot, we're at the donor's timeline. And like I said, so many of our donors, are approached by many organizations. They're usually very generous, so when somebody puts down, well, you have to see 25 visits this month. Like you said, you can always play that game. You just start calling people, hey, I want to come by and see you. I want to come by and see you. It's just better to have a small portfolio, 75 donors that are involved, invested, and will make their support and could consider increasing than trying to get 150 or 200. Then you're not doing anything. Anyway, any other questions? I mean, we sort of covered a lot of topics here, but I think it's all important, the tactics, as you might say. And like I said, I use safe and warm. You did see where it says contact, for funders, secure sponsors, and so I was able to do that. And that is fundraising. And we were very successful for this safe and warm. And, it's, like I said, last year was almost $70,000 we raised doing safe and warm. So we think this will be another very successful year. And Tracy, you want to unmute? I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I just had one other question. This is more technical. I mean, as far as creating a calendar like that, would you encourage like a project management program, or it looks like you just use Excel? What works for your organization?
I used Google Sheets because you could share those. Mm-hmm. We do use project management. We use Trello as one of the project management software that we use. But for this, because it has to be printed out and put prominently, we thought Google Sheets both, it could be updated as somebody completed a particular objective or completed an assigned task towards the tactic. So that's what we use, but we do use Trello mainly for our events as well.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Well, we probably ought to wrap up. We could do one more question if somebody's got a burning one. Right, doesn't sound like anybody's on fire.
Well,
I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. I hope it was informative. You know, I mean, there's several ways you can do this, but I have found that this is a very responsive and useful tool to organize a multi-location, multi-department organization. So.
Really appreciate this presentation, Jim, and thanks everybody for your active participation in the conversation. We covered some important topics today.
All right. I look forward to seeing everybody next month. Kevin is a great presenter, and I think you will enjoy his conversation.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you in
Sharon,
February.
Kim, Alex, everybody. Thank you all. Bye-bye.